Welcome to the SOB radio show, where we have fun, interesting guests, and hot topics. Each week, we offer insights into music, fashion, health, fitness, and humor. Do you have the perfect guest for us to interview? I want to know. Drop me a line on our Facebook page at Spunky Old Broad 1 or reach out to me on our website at spunkyoldbroad.com. And now, back to the show. Hi, everyone. This is Gayle Carson, and it is an absolute delight to interview my guest today, who is Jane Jenkins Herlong. Jane is just a celebrity in her own right, and I want to tell you about all the things that she's involved with. She combines her humor, life-changing truths, and award-winning singing because she adds pizzazz to her presentations like this, and she inspires audiences to discover their gifts and to live a life filled with peak performance. She's also a serious XM humorist, author of 5 best-selling award-winning books, and a professional singer. A recent inductee into the prestigious Speaker Hall of Fame, Jane is one of 232 men and women to be awarded this honor, including former U.S. President Ronald Reagan, General Colin Powell, and she has earned the designation of Certified Speaker Professional by the National Speakers Association. Jane's keen sense of humor evolved as a result of being labeled dyslexic and constantly told, "You can't do that." To Jane, the word no means next, and through her faith and determination, she experienced life-changing results. Jane's audiences learn about the healing power of humor when handling negative people and circumstances to achieve more productive, positive living. She delivers a simple message that lives every day. Prove people wrong and laugh while living your dreams. From the rows of her family tomato farm to the runway of the Miss America pageant, get ready for a serving of sweet tea wisdom and Southern fried humor. Welcome, Jane.
Oh, Gail, that sounded so wonderful. I was just sitting here going, gosh, do I know that person? It just sounds so good.
Don't we feel that way sometimes when we're being
Yes.
introduced?
And yes.
I know Jane personally. I've heard her sing. Her voice is absolutely magnificent. I've been the
Oh,
beneficiary of her humor because in her books she just it's hysterical. And I think what your latest book is, Sweet Tea Wisdom and Southern Fried Humor, and it just is fabulous. And then of course she has a claim to being on the Miss America pageant. And Jane, you and I think are the only ones that approved a bathing suit in the Miss America contest. I thought, I mean, that I ran the Miss Florida World pageant for 11 years. So and I ran so many beauty contests because I had modeling schools, and I was president of the Modeling Association of America. And so I mean, this was part of what it was. I mean, that's what you got to get where you were. So I think, I don't say it has to be a bikini, but I think those one piece bathing suits are magnificent. And if you are going to be a Miss America, that's what I think you should be in. And I have to tell you, I was a little disappointed in some of the women who were in the Miss America pageant. Now, I loved the winner. I thought the winner was fabulous. But there were some women there who I don't think would have been there a few years ago. So it would be
I
interesting to get
agree.
your
Oh, I
opinion.
agree. Yeah, I'm on your page. And Gail, I do think the big missing link at Miss America now, okay, so they got rid of swimsuit. There should be some emphasis in physical fitness. I mean, you could take each one of those finalists, the 15, for the time they walk on the stage, and they could have a little clip of them. Here's how I stay in shape. It could be spinning class, it could be rock climbing, it could be running on the beach. I mean, our country needs that lesson of taking care of your bodies because it takes care of your mind, and then you can be more productive mentally and physically.
Well, I totally agree with you. I think that I think the physical fitness is important. I mean, I worked out this morning before I did this show, and I think that it's very, very important. So, let me ask you as my first question to you: how has being involved in the Miss America pageant been a life game changer for you?
Well, I being that I was reared on a tomato farm and my daddy dropped out of school in the 10th grade, and we just had such a meager existence. And it was just truly a way for me to find out what I was capable of. And it was probably one of the greatest experiences, because I always say that Miss America was everything I wanted to become, but I wasn't. And that's pretty huge when you think about like Zig Ziglar. I know you remember this line. He said, "We're all human becoming." And I love that. And so to me, if you want to be a good communicator, you put yourself in a position to communicate. If you want to be a good singer or have a talent, I don't care if the world considers it bigger or smaller or whatever your talent is, grow that talent. It could be something as kind and thoughtful as baking world-class cookies and going to the nursing home. To me, that's a talent. It's two talents in one. It's the talents of helps, which I think is a spiritual gift, and a talent of cooking, which I don't have, just for the record. But I think that you can develop also your poise. And you know that, Gayle, from being involved in the competitions and the modeling. The way you carry yourself sells you in whatever you're wearing and whatever you're doing. It's a seller. And then, of course, you've got the physical fitness portion as well. So those four phases of taking care of yourself, learning and have a sense of style and grace and carriage, communication and talent, that's life. I mean, whether people want to admit it or not, that's life on steroids right there. What the Miss America system, and I'm sure what your businesses you saw just evolve in young women who want to take their lives to the next level.
Absolutely. I mean, I was amazed at some of the students that came out of my schools. I mean, they really went on to fabulous things, and many of them modeled in Paris and Milan, and even won competition up in New York City. And it's well, that's my old bias and your bias, but I know that it has really been a game changer for you.
It
And
has.
I think it's something to be proud of, and I see nothing wrong with. But anyway, that's our opinions, and I'm sure some of our
Well,
listeners have their own.
let me highlight a current event situation that we're so proud of in South Carolina. One of our former Miss South Carolinas, now she did great. She became America's Outstanding Teen, and she actually was first runner-up to Miss America. And she was a rally cat, they call them, at Clemson University. Well, she just started out with 400 other beautiful women, and she now is a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. And they scaled that down to 30-something young women. And she could not be any sweeter and kinder of a, I mean, I just text messaged her. I was speaking in Texas last week, and she was just so kind, and we tried to get together and so on. But those are the kinds of things. I guarantee you, Rachel Wyatt is her name. She would have never had the courage or the wherewithal or the skills to try out had she not incrementally improved herself in so many ways.
Well, that's true, and that's that, and of course, that's all a part of learning too. Is that if something doesn't happen for you, or you are not chosen for some reason, figure out why, work on that, get better, and try again. I mean, that's what it's all about. And you can't, as you said, you can't take no for an answer. I mean, that's exactly right. You said it means next, and that's what you have to do. So you are a speaker, of course, and most speakers have signature stories, stories that they are known for, or a reason why they have a passion to speak, and nobody can really define it. It's just something you feel inside. I tell people you could stick me in the middle of a highway and tell me to talk about potato chips, and I could do it for an hour. So share your story. Share what that signature story is.
Well, I go back, as I mentioned, the farm, and just my daddy struggled. He was very honest and hardworking, and that's a wonderful ethic to be reared with. My mother was funny, and those three things combined, honesty, hard work, and humor. I've sort of created a career, but it was not an easy ride. In the sixth grade, I saw my IQ, and it was pitiful. And hopefully, it just was. I mean, when you're that small and see something that traumatic, like, okay, I'm stupid. I mean, but you don't want to tell yourself that. But when you are on a scale of excellence with all these other people, it does make you. it can just tear you down. I mean, it takes something from you. But again, I just did the no to next. And then when I was in high school, I started teaching dyslexic children, and I got fired. And the woman told me that I was dyslexic. So I tried to go into get into college, but only one in my family, and took the PSAT, the SAT, the ACT. Then I say the DUMB, but nothing worked. But and all these colleges, they were not interested. And one little Methodist college in the capital city of Columbia in South Carolina, Columbia College, they said they would interview me. And I mean, I could talk my way into anything. As you said, sell potato chips on the street corner. I could do that and talk about it and eat at the same time. But I just managed to talk my way into Columbia College, and Daddy didn't have the money, but I got a grant and cucumber rebate money. Thank God for cucumber rebate money. And I went to Columbia College, and I actually started on academic probation, but I graduated, and my peers voted me the highest honors. It was just a delight and a joy, and I remember it just, with a big heart to this day because it was so pivotal. And then I went on to graduate school and then to Miss America. So I decided a long time ago not to let people define who you are. And I have a speech I share, Gayle, and I call it "Don't Throw Tomatoes at My Field of Dreams." And it's all about the things I learned from the tomato field that translates into life using the tomato as an analogy. So it just continues. I keep being brave. And I think you have to face life, like the Sirius XM thing. That's been a tremendous career booster for me, because the guy that I sent my material to just said, no, you don't have a niche and you're not funny. And I thought, well, whatever. I didn't really say it like that, but I said a wordy dird. But I sent it anyway. And it was months later, somebody said, Jane, they're playing your comedy. And I went, hush, which in the South means please continue. And so that was 6 years ago. And then the books. I mean, I got an F in writing in college, and the professor made fun of my paper and photocopied it and sent it to everybody in the class. And I'm sitting there red-faced about how horrible the grammar was and that I'm not a good writer. And man, that was tough. But, God is good, because I am at my college's convocation as the keynote speaker. And who is in the third row but that sweet, bless his heart, professor? And I got to hand a book to him that I just written.
That's so funny. People don't realize, first of all, the harm they're doing when they do what we call constructive criticism.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's really amazing because it does have an impact, and it's something you carry with you. And in my case, I mean, I had a pretty high IQ. I did well in school, but my sister, it has a genius IQ. And
Wow.
so wherever I went, because she was 5 years ahead of me, it was, why aren't you like my sister? Because she was like a math wizard. And and I remember sitting in algebra class, was seventh grade, and I was in algebra class, and I said whatever I said like this, and the teacher said, "Speak up. I am sure that boys love to be around you and that they love to have you in their living room, but in algebra class, speak up." And and then she went on to say something like, "Be more like your sister," or something. And it was, I mean, I just thought, oh my gosh. So I mean, they don't realize, but the thing that we have to hammer into ourselves and into our kids and into people who follow us, it is next. You can't look at the losses or the negatives. You've got to look at the wins and where you're going. So that really is an important lesson I think people have to learn. So one of the things that we see today that society is giving us is that many people respond with a mean spirit. I mean, I can't
Oh, boy.
stand these election ads. They just drive me
Oh,
nuts. So, what is your idea for remedying this? I mean, I can't even watch them, and they just go on and on and on and on.
I know. I'm with you. And I was thinking today, the only remedy I know that I hear people saying is they just cut it off. I mean, it's like I I look at my children, and I'll go back to this. And I'm sure I made many mistakes, and with child rearing, Thomas and I both did. But there's something going on in our culture today. And I think it was on the cusp of when my children were small and I saw this next generation of little kids coming up and what the parents did for their birthday parties. It was like, you got to be kidding me. It was such overkill. And I'm thinking, you're going to set your kids up for a very unrealistic life because you're not going to have that bouncy castle, or you can have a hissy fit at Walmart and get that toy you want. You've got to teach your children that life isn't fair and you better learn it and learn it fast. And I said that to my children. Welcome to Life 101. I can't make this easy for you. And if I could, I would be doing you a disservice to make life simple. So I think we have a group of people, and I'm seeing it in this generation, the college age and younger, that don't understand disappointment and they don't know how to handle when they don't get their way or people don't think their thoughts. And what's the joke is, supposedly we've got the most tolerant people, but they're the most intolerant in their responses. Only are they tolerant if you think like they think. And that's the biggest joke. And then you have the proverbial mean-spirited person who is just going to drag people down to hopefully move themselves up. But we are in a situation in this country, and I think it's a crying shame. It's not teaching good lessons to our young people at all.
Well, I agree with you, and I think it always amazes me when people make this big deal out of, you know, a first year birthday party. I mean, they have this big thing. I mean, the kid's 1 year old. You don't know. He or she will not remember it. And it's really for you. It's for you, the parent or the grandparent. So I think we started off like this. And let's face it, we are responsible for what our kids are like and do. And so it starts in the home and it
Sure
progresses
does.
from there, you know?
I mean,
So,
I was an avid James Dobson child rearing expert person in terms of reading what he had to say. And his rule of thumb, speaking of birthday parties, you just reminded me, is whatever the child's age is, you add one person. In other words, for example, you add how many children they're the age of the child. If the child is one, they have one friend. Next year when they're two, they have two friends come to their party. So that, that makes great sense. But you were just teaching children that if you don't get your way, you can act out, show out, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but the squeaky wheel also gets the grease that covers the character too, and it does not shine at all. And you really, that to me is teaching your children disappointment. And boy, as parents, we just, the old saying is, when they're little they get on your nerves, when they're bigger they get on your heart, and they stay on your heart. And that is very true. We wish we could take the hits for the kids, but we're just doing them a disservice in maturing.
well, you mentioned the power of changing no to next. So what do you think our listening audience can learn from that kind of thinking? I mean, I know that every day I wake up next because there's so many things in my life that I deal with, and so what do you say to the audience? How can they learn from that?
Well, I think everyone's definition of next is different. And what I have always told myself, even before I realized the power of the word next, is the what if. I do not want to be an elderly woman sitting in a rocking chair wondering what if. And I've got a plaque in my house and it says, destined to be an old woman with no regrets. And that's what I think of when I think about the next phase of my life. I just don't want to think, well, gosh, what if I had tried to get a book deal? Or I mean, I just want to say, wow, look what happened when I and I call it the hokey pokey moments in life, where you do the right thing, you shake it off, and you turn it around. That's what life is about too, those magic hokey pokey moments. But I would say to the audience, think about your life in 5 to 10 years from now and look back and just pretend you're in that spot. And what do you want to see you being and doing now. And if it's something, and I just can't stand it when people say things like, oh, I've always wanted to write a book, but I just can't. Well, why not? I mean, I've probably encouraged more people to write books. And this business about, oh, I've just met a comedian the other day, and he said, oh, I'd like to be on Sirius, but I don't think I'm funny. And I said, you are. Try it. Let me tell you how to do it. And he just sent me an email saying, I'm on. I got on. I can't believe it. Thank you for encouraging me. So, and then you've got the discouragers too. You know, it's funny, Gayle, because people love to see you succeed as long as you don't do better than them. And
That is so true.
that's an old Larry Winget. Well, of course, that's not original, but when Larry said that, I said, boy, you are spot on with that. But so I like to be an encourager, but I do think people need to think about those dreams. And I believe God plants dreams in our hearts, and we're either going to grow them or we're going to throw them. And I think we need to grow those dreams and don't get to a point where you can't physically, because it's not like Nito Cobain always says, it's not time management, honey. I could find the time. It is energy management. Boy, is that ever the case when you get older. You just run out of energy.
Well, I have a program that is called the 9 Secrets of Living Regret-Free. So I'm all about living regret-free.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
And I think that you saying that brings out a very important point. Well, that's a big statement. I don't want to say most. I will say many people take the easy way out by saying I can't, or I don't know how, or it's beyond me, or I'm not that important or gifted or whatever it happens to be. And I find that every single person has some gift about them, whatever it may be. And it just is amazing to me, as you say, that people don't try the things that they're scared of and get over it. But let's I think there's something special. I know a lot of people who tell stories, and they're Southern, and there's just something about a Southerner that is great when it comes to telling stories. I don't think anybody can tell a story with the same humor that a Southern person can. So how did you become a Southern humorist, and how is it different from a comedian?
Well, the difference is a humorist tells a story. A comedian might have a really funny one-liner or lots of funny one-liners in a story, but a humorist builds the colors, the characters, and just builds the scenario. And I'm always looking for humor and how it started. And it's like you said, Gayle, it's that first step, that first little thing you do. So what I could do when I finished my reign as Miss South Carolina, I moved to this really small town, and I thought, I don't know what to do. And a cousin of mine said, why don't you speak to kids? Because you're a singer and you could create a little motivational message. And without knowing what a signature story was, I wrapped that around some bullet points. I called it How to Be a VIP and Vision Initiative Perspective. And I had a ball with that, but I tried. And as I would do these presentations, plus I recorded gospel music and Christian music. And as I would sing in churches or speak in schools, and that was my business when I was in my 20s. And I would have people say, gosh, that was a great song, but what you said connecting the next song, I loved it. Do you have that? And I thought, oh my gosh, they like to hear me speak. And then all of a sudden I would speak more. Maybe I'd add a little chuckle and they'd say, that was funny. So basically, Gayle, when you put yourself out there, as you know, people start to tell you things like that. And you start to say, well, maybe I can try this. Or do you have a book? Well, I don't have a book, but I know there's one in me somewhere. And Larry Winget, I'll quote him again. He said, if you got a book, you got a speech. You've got a speech, you got a book. So back then, we all had back of the room little books and CDs and stuff. So I think basically you listen to people and they help you take that next step and that next step. So let me tell you, this is kind of cute. I just got back from Texas and I just sent my newsletter out. It goes out in about an hour. But I met this fella, and I love accents, so I'll tell you my new story. This old Texan, he's so funny, and I made a comment during my speech last Tuesday night when I was in Corsicana, that humor's everywhere. Don't, just look for it. And he said, yeah, I know what you're saying. I had it happen to me. I worked in one of them paint stores. He said, this woman done come in and she said, can you match me some paint? He said, yes, ma'am. You got me a little paint chip? She said, no, sir. And what does she do? Out of her pocketbook, she pulls out a pair of pink panties. Said, can you match these panties to some paint? Well, yes, ma'am, but I ain't never done it, but I bet you I can. He said, well, that wasn't the doggonedest thing that happened. She come in there about a week later and the place is just full of people. And she announces in a big old voice, where's that man that's got my pink panties? Is you done with them yet? Well,
That's hysterical.
Isn't that funny? And so my article today that I sent out in my newsletter was called, Do You Have Pink Panty Power? And I use that because, in other words, can you laugh at things you can't control? And then our minister had a great sermon Sunday, and he said that children laugh 400 times a day, and adults laugh 17. And I thought, now there you go. I'm going to jam that right in that article that I wrote. And so that's kind of how I find my comedy. The people told me I was funny, which I've always known had some humor because my mother was funny. And then as the career has sort of unfolded, I thought, well, why not? Let's give it a go. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm just thankful that I try to put myself out there to see if it'll stick.
Well, I'll tell you, just stick with us, folks. Jane is full of all of this. We're going to take our break now, and we will be right back.